Let's give a rounding applause for Aaron Coleman, everybody. Aaron Coleman. Thanks, Aaron. Share with us. Okay.
All right, we're on the Delta. It's time to catch some big bass. Now, real quick, show of hands, who's on? Just so dictate how have a seminar. All right, who's in points? This one stay in points. We got one, we got two, we got three. All right. If I was fishing this tournament tomorrow, now let's say if I was just going to enter the tournament, I'm not in a point situation, I'm just going to go fishing. I'd probably throw a top water, put something big and heavy. That would probably be my two things that I would do. But if I was in the points and fishing this tournament tomorrow, I'd probably have a flip stick in my hand, and that'd be just about it. I would start off in the morning, top water, buzz bass, throwing frogs. Midday, maybe depending on the tide, if it's high tide in the middle of the day, probably throw some frogs on scum mats and stuff like that. But primarily, I would be flipping this sucker. Okay? All right, let's just talk about some of the early morning top waters I would fish briefly, and hope for a couple of big bites and get into the flipping stuff. It's also something else I want to talk about too. But tomorrow, I would start with two things: spook and a buzzbait. Okay? If you notice this buzzbait right here, it's a plastic loaded buzzbait. One reason I'm fishing this bait. Hello? Okay. Hello. One reason I'm
Sabotage
Up your left hand.
Okay. One of the reasons I would fish this is two reasons. Well, one reason is all right. The reason why I would fish this bait is because it's delayed right here. This is going to allow you to fish this bait super slow. All right. With the wind situation, it's approaching September. The fish have seen 1,002 buzz baits. This is a bait that you can get two things accomplished. You can get the aggravation strike, reaction strike, plus you can get the feeding strike. Because this bait's going to sit there on top of their strike zone. Seems like forever. All right. It's going to produce a nice little bubble trail. A lot of disturbance because of it's a 4-blade buzz bait. Okay, plastic blade. Real good technique here. Because everybody's going metal. All right. Other thing I would throw is a Vixen. Smaller in profile than a normal super spook. Easier for them to choke it down and has a noise factor in it. A little different than a spook. I don't know if you guys just know Vixens. Okay, I'm gonna throw this on 20-pound test. 20-pound mono. Everything else I usually fish on Seaguar fluorocarbon. But on top water like this, I'm throwing mono. I'm throwing this on 65-pound braid. Okay, don't even play around. They can't see the line. It's a reaction strike. And a lot of times the buzz baits, you don't get a chance to set the hook. It's more just to lean into them. Because if you set the hook, you're pulling it out of your mouth. So with braid, that's accomplished very easily just with getting up the wrist. Okay. One trick with this bait, I take off the middle hook. All right. I take off the middle hook and I add 2 size 4s. Or no, excuse me, 2 size 2s. No, 4s. 2s. 2 size 2s. Okay. The third hook is great, but those 2 big size 2s really get them. You don't have a problem. Okay. Any questions?
You put a trailer on that buzz bait?
Yeah. I'm generally going to run the trailer on there. I'm usually using a. What I like to use is it's a small tuna hook. It's basically a live bait hook. They use it like in the ocean for tuna and stuff like that. It's a little small. Owner makes it. Gamogatsu makes it. It's really small. But the thing about that hook, if it can cut a tuna's jaw, it tears bass up, no problem. Only problem with that at times is if they really bite real soft. You don't get a chance to really, let that hook penetrate. But 9 times out of 10, that hook's just going to cut the top bone. It's a really good hook to use. So that's the hook I use.
Are you leaving the hook loose, or are you putting the...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the hook is loose.
Put the rubber over the top of that?
Yeah, what I do is I make sure that I trim the rubber just around the hook, and then I crazy glue that so that hook that stopper doesn't make us move up and block that bar. I don't want anything to obstruct that bar, because that's what's going to keep that fish pegged. Because sometimes they'll come up there, blast this bait, and move that trailer, and the trailer never grabs it. Still using it. Okay. All right, so that's what I would do. I would give it some time. I'll give some time. I'll fish a couple different areas, but I'm going to my best areas. I'm trying to get them on top water. Well, a lot happens at night, especially out here in summertime. These fish feed a lot at night, so a lot of stuff you find can change instantly overnight. You know, it might just be a deal where a humongous school of shad moved through your area. Billhiemer decided to, you know, moonlight, and they fed up real heavy. So you might get there, you could have a topwater bite solid all week, and you get there the day of the tournament, it's something different, it changed. And so depend on it, but don't depend on it, okay? This is what I would depend on. I'm gonna flip something dark and something bulky, generally, all right? Red shad, June bug, something red flake in it, speed worm, excellent. For instance, like if something in front of the boat, your partner's flipping a jig, something like this falling behind them would be a great follow-up bait because it's smaller in profile. It's you know, it's more of a finesse flipping bait. All right, I'm going to peg the weight. I'm going to flip probably like a quarter ounce weight, maybe 3/8. You know, if I'm using this. Another good bait, 10-inch vertically power one, or 100 big unit. I'm using June bug, black and blue, you know, the red shad color, dark colors. Brush off, dynamite. Okay? Might not get a lot of bites, but you're usually going to get a nice chunky bite. This is also dynamite on the back of the jig, okay, as a trailer. Tell you what, you get a deal where you're flipping and the bite's not really solid for you, you're kind of having some trouble. Tell you what, you guys, lighter line, like a 12, 10-pound test on some of those deeper tule banks, because these fish are staging in a lot of different areas. You got some fish that live in the shallow stuff, but you got a lot of these fish are sitting in 15. Some fish are being caught out of 17, 20 feet of water. All right? Lighter line, Texas rig, and you're basically going to fish just like you're fishing the lake. You're going to back off those tule burns, those rock banks that have nice little deep holes around points. You're going to cast the thing up on the bank and you're going to walk it down. You're going to fish it deep. You're going to fish all the way to the boat, you know, or you're going to parallel the bank and you're going to cast it up and you're going to walk that thing back. You'll be surprised what lurks down there deep, because everybody fishes the delta almost the same way, like this. Okay? So if they're up there feeding, great, you know, but a lot of times those bigger fish are going to push back and they'll find little eddies in the current or whatever, and they're going to live there. All right? So that's another good technique. Lighten up and try something like in a finesse type style, you know, 6-inch worm. June bug, you know, standard. All right, tell you another bite that's going right now. Got some information to share with you guys. It's a solid crankbait. Okay, there's a rattle trap bite, there's a speed trap bite, but there's also an outside weed line deep crankbait bite. Tell you what, this bait right here is a River to Sea. Someone gave me this bait like 3 weeks ago, and I've caught fish on it. The price point is perfect. It's an inexpensive bait that catches fish. You know, they're here, River Sea's here, and I'm not saying this because he gave me the bait, told me to say this. I'm saying this because I caught fish on it, and I know money is an issue. You know, $6.99, $7 for a high quality bait. Great bait, it's working right now. Speed trap, going into this color right here. The dark red crawl. Okay? This is going to be inside the weed lines, and the shallow stuff. Throw this outside the weed lines on the deeper stuff. Alright? You can throw this probably like on 15-pound, 10-pound, 12-pound test, depending on the type of line. You know, like I fish Seaguar, so I can use 10. Alright, some pretty strong line. Alright? Let's talk about middle of the day. Just running some of those scum pockets. You know, especially if it's a high tide. I don't know, what's tide doing tomorrow, dude?
Dropping most of the day.
Dropping most of the day, so it kind of, this won't be the best technique, but if you can't find some of those scum pockets that are still, you know, still got a foot of water, 2 feet of water underneath them, next to some deep water, you know, have this tied on. Make a cast on it, you know, drag it across a couple times. You know, always have this thing tied on. This color right here. Okay. Now, any questions at this time? Okay. Part of the delta right now is this is a lot of nice fish, and it's basically semi-protected from this wind. Is the middle portion of the delta. Union Point to Mildred, around the Mildred area, that middle delta, middle river, is really kicking some fish out right now. So, you know, if you want to look at an area, if your primary area, your main area doesn't pan out, that's the area you maybe want to check out. All right. So, I want to thank everybody for coming out. Any questions? All right, let's get some fish.
I just want to introduce myself first. My name is John Billhiemer. I work here at Extreme Outdoorsman. I started fishing Future Pro 3 years ago. I fished 2 seasons, and it's just an awesome tournament. Vince runs a great tournament, draws a lot of boats for a semi-pro tournament, and it's really helped me where I am today in FLW and stuff. So the big fields helps with FLW if you're planning to jump up, if you make the step up to the bigger tournaments and stuff. And you travel around all the different lakes in California, so it makes you a versatile angler. You get a chance to fish the Delta, Oroville, Clear Lake, all good lakes to fish, and just an awesome tournament circuit. So fish it. But as far as Extreme Outdoorsman goes, it's an awesome store right here on the Delta. We try to cater to the fishermen as much as we can. We always have competitive prices, and good guys work here. Rodney, my boss, is an awesome dude. So a couple specials in there if you guys want to go check it out. But as far as the Delta goes right now, for you guys that are fishing tomorrow, buzzbaits have been working really good lately, first thing in the morning. I've been slow and flipping lately, in like the afternoon and stuff when the top water slows down. But frogs have been catching big fish too, so keep that in mind. But I just want to thank everybody for coming out, and good luck tomorrow. Yeah, Cinco's for sure. And is there any questions?
We're going to make it easy on him. This is his first time up here, so we're going to feed him, okay? So we're going to get some questions going. This guy, he knows what to say. You just have to prompt him, okay? Any questions? Let's have some questions. Now, guys, this is your opportunity. This is not just a show and tell. This is so that you guys, we bring these pros up here so that if you have any questions, I know you guys are from the Central Valley. You don't get to fish at Delta much. This is your opportunity. Use it.
So when you won, who's your partner? Did he go anywhere in this tournament too? Or?
Your partner.
Justin. Yeah, Justin actually went on to win Shasta this year for the FLW Strength Series on the other side. So it's helped him a lot too.
Questions about the Delta? What's going on out there? Anybody have some questions? We've got Mr. Martinez here.
Hey John, when the bike gives up tomorrow morning, when we're out there and we don't get nothing, what pattern should we go to?
Patterns for the morning. First in the morning. If it's not happening, what do you do?
I throw a 5-inch.
Budweiser.
5-inch Cinco is always a good choice when the bike and stuff. Wacky rig always seems to catch a lot of fish, so I usually fall back on that when things don't go right.
Why 5-inch as opposed to 4-inch or 9-inch or?
Just something smaller for the fish to eat and bike and stuff. They don't need a really big crawdad or something. Just something small.
Any particular color?
Watermelon red's really good. Black and red, and dark colors pretty much always work.
You got a lot of watermelon red in there, Rod? We need to go grab a watermelon red for some of the people that don't know what that color is. We'll bring that out here. They might want to pitch it. Our pros saying watermelon red for you guys that don't know what colors you should be throwing. Anybody else? Let's get some questions going here. This is your opportunity. Don't be shy. Anybody? Anybody? All right, here we go.
Well, when you're in a tournament and you're going out there to fish, my question might sound a little odd, but swing for the fences or just smaller fish. How do you target when you go out for a tournament? I mean, obviously you want big fish, but how do you go about doing that? What baits?
How do you refine your game plan basically? Before we do that, this is watermelon red, everybody. For you that don't know, this is an awesome color. It used to be called Hal's Craw 39 back in the day. But this is watermelon red. How do you pattern? How do you make that transition to know you want to go for the big fish?
A lot of it depends on the tournament. If I'm just going out and fishing a fun tournament on the Delta with my buddy for the weekend or something, I'll just go out to win. I'll throw big baits and just try to win. But if I'm fishing like FLW, we have 5 or 6 tournaments a year. And I usually try to, if things don't go right in the first tournament, I try to fall back and just work on catching the limit every day of the tournament. Try to make the cut, just get the points to make the championship at the end of the year. So especially the future pro too, same thing.
I got a question. I'm going to ask it for Mr. Eden here, Clyde. Clyde wanted to know where the top water action is on the Delta. He's new to the Delta, wants to know a little bit. Is that what you wanted to ask? Specifically, you have a specific area, you just want to know what areas are best for top water?
I have a map and you can put X's on it.
I got one of those maps.
Okay, give it up, give it up. Okay. It's not. You, right now, it's a top water tournament. It's one of my famous opens. Top water only. Where do you go tomorrow for top water? Where's your #1 spot?
I fish probably anywhere from Frank's Track south to Holland.
Too broad. Narrow it down, buddy.
How's Discovery Bay this time of year?
Discovery Bay's okay. A couple small ones swimming around there once in a while, but no, I mean anywhere from Frank's Track to Holland, that whole area in there. There's a lot of cuts you can get out of the wind. So if it's windy and stuff, you can always find somewhere to get out. But that's usually where I fish off.
Okay, Frank's Track, Holland cut. Okay, now are we looking at riprap? Are we looking at tule pockets? We're looking at grass mats with holes in them. What specifically? Talk to this guy. We want specifics. We can read bass mats in magazine anytime we want. We want specifics.
Right now, a lot of the better fish I've been catching have been on deep tule clumps. I mean, anywhere from 5 to 10 feet. There's lots of current going by them. Seems the bigger fish are always holding up in the current in the summertime. And so I fish a lot of frogs and tules and buzz baits and poppers. So anywhere you got deep islands or clumps, tules, current going by them, always good in the summer.
Okay, clumps. Anybody else? Okay, here we go. There we go. Let's get it rolling.
Swim baits. You hear a lot about swim baits in the Delta.
Yeah.
It's, what seem to be the better ones, or
I really don't fish much swim baits on the Delta. I mean, I know a lot of guys do. I know the mission fish is a really popular one, but I'm not too sure about the summertime so much. I know early spring and springtime are awesome, but I'd say a mission fish, like a 5-inch bluegill would be your best one. So.
I thought swim baits were clear water lakes. I didn't know it was for the Delta. They can see that. There's no trout out here in the Delta, and that's what a swim bait's supposed to imitate, correct?
Bluegill.
Bluegill. Okay. Oh, the bluegill swim bait. Okay, good. School me. Next. Anybody? Anybody? Who else? I saw a hand go up a minute ago. Don't be shy. This is your opportunity, guys. This is your opportunity. Everybody's going, oh, pro asking a pro. You think you're going to get anything out of him? He's your competitor, boy.
Hey, Bill. Tell us a little bit about that Lake Havasu tournament and how did it feel? And I haven't experienced that yet, man. I only can imagine.
Yeah, share with us. Hold on. I'm bringing the mic here. Don't. We want to hit the whole thing.
All right. Yeah, that was a weird tournament. That was the very first FLW tournament I ever fished. And I went down there 5 days in advance of the tournament. Got 3 bites in 5 days. I caught 1 fish all practice. So going into the tournament, I was just like totally demoralized. Not ready for this big tournament I signed up for. I can't get out of now, so. I went out there and fished. The only area where I caught fish in practice, and I went there and stayed there pretty much the whole tournament. It's the only area in 5 days, you know, 1 fish. So I went there and had a crankbait tied on, had a couple split shots, just little stuff. Just played around there all morning. And stumbled across a couple fish in the middle of the bridge and stayed there because every time I would catch a fish, there'd be 10 behind it. So I knew there was a bunch of fish under the bridge. I basically went there and looked at 4 days in a row. And the 4th day, it actually didn't pan out. I think I only caught 1 fish under there, but there's a marina right down the canal where I caught a couple fish on the Senko. So I went down there and filled up. I think I caught 2 more fish in there. So it was cool though. I mean, it was an awesome thing. It was weird, 70 grand, 16, but that was cool. I mean, fishing against Robert Lee and all those guys you see on TV, it's awesome. And then to be doing it, it's just really cool. So.
A legend. He was inducted a couple of years ago. One of the only people in the West to be inducted into the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. And he is the inventor. Even the old boys back east and down south give him the credit. He is the inventor of the flipping technique. So you guys have the opportunity to hear and talk to a living legend. I'm going to bring up Dee Thomas. Let's hear it for Dee Thomas. My friend Dee. Thanks so much, Dee, for coming out. Really appreciate you.
You need to get your stats right, bud. I was fortunate enough to get inducted into the Professional Bass Fishing Hall of Fame this year, and also the California Sportsman's Hall of Fame. So, I'll tell you what, you know, when you get that honor bestowed on you, it's really great to get something like that before you die. And I never even thought about anything like that when I first started fishing. Enough of this stuff. I know you guys want to talk about the Delta, and right now I'll give you some things to run with. I like a buzzbait, I like a vixen, I like a spook. My favorite's a popper. Play the shade. And in the Delta, you don't have big bounds of shades like the wall here. You don't have that. As the day progresses and the sun starts to come up, you lose all the shade about 10 o'clock. But up till then, you'll have a foot, 2 foot off the bank, that's shade. If you've got current and shade, and no wind or waves beating on that bank, and you'll stay with that popper long enough, you'll get a limit. There's a lot of fish biting in Rock Slough. There's a lot of fish biting in Woodward Canal. There's a bunch of fish biting in Disappointment. John will tell you the little fish, I know better. A friend of mine seen a school of 5-pounders down there just yesterday. The popper will be, if I was going to go fish this tournament tomorrow, I'd tie a popper on, I want to put it down to 8:30, 9 o'clock. And after that, what I would do is I'd let the water dictate what I was going to do. If the water was starting to fall out and I could see the edge of the weed line, I'd do what Aaron said. I'd pick up a red crankbait. I don't care what kind it is, but I like a crankbait that runs between 6 and 8 feet deep. And I don't crank it too fast, but I try to run right on the edge of the weeds. If you get out into the flooded impoundments like Frank's Track, Mildred, Sherman Lake, Big Break, I prefer to throw a lipless crankbait because it doesn't hang up as bad as a lip crankbait will. So then I'll throw a rattle trap or one of that nature is what I'll throw. There's a lot of fish biting out in the break right now, but the bad part about that is you're dealing with wind. Wind just kills that area. Tuesday, I know a guy that caught a 30-pound sack, that's 5 fish, in Frank's Track. That's where he caught them at. He caught them on Senkos, and he caught them on crankbaits. He was throwing them the bomber, the one that runs about 4 to 8 feet deep is the one he was throwing. And he had one that weighed 9.5, and he caught that on Senko. The same day, this was on Tuesday, another friend of mine was out there. He had 23 pounds, is what he had for 5. Now, when I say Frank's Track, I don't mean just inside the track. I mean all the surrounding little tributaries next to it. Piper, Washington Cut, Fisherman's Cut, Old River, all the stuff down to by Sand Mountain, all that area there. There's a bunch of topwater fish being caught in the back of Sand Mountain right now also. It's a case in our delta out here. All you got to do is pick an area that you want to go fish and fish it, because the whole delta is full of fish. It's not one particular spot or one particular area. Any place you want to go, you can apply the technique that you like to fish. If you're doing it on the right tide, you'll catch fish doing it. I can get up here and just keep going on and on and on about this. But what I like to do, where I work the best, is when I answer questions. So why don't we open this up to questions? We'll let Vince run this microphone, and I'll try to answer as many of them as I can. And I won't lie to none of you guys.
Before we do that, whoever has the NASCAR boat, you need to move it. One of the landscaping guys wants to get out. All right, this is the best way to do it. He could talk forever, but he wants to be specific and answer your questions. This is your opportunity to talk to a legend in this sport.
How big a popper and what kind of line?
Popper, Dee, and what kind of line is good for that?
Well, I really don't throw a popper. I throw a Rico, and I throw the big one, which is probably, I like so the body is. What's that, 3.5, 4 inches? And but a popper works just as well. And the line, I never throw mono on anything except the Senko. I throw braid on everything. I'm old, my reflexes are not as good as they used to be. Thank God to make Yamagatsu hooks and braid line. So you got it. Another question.
All right. You guys don't understand too. Back in the day, he fished the Bassmaster Classic.
Dee, thanks for coming in. Well, on your Senkos, do you have a color choice right now?
Senko, color choice. What kind of color? What is your pleasure on that, bud?
Well, I only throw two colors most of the time, and that's green pumpkin, black flake, and I throw black and blue, and I like watermelon with black flake. That's what I carry in my box. And June bug. You can't beat the June bug, that's the best. Get a little stain water, put everything else down, and put a June bug on and go to work. And I don't throw nothing but 7-inch sinkos, 6-inch sinkos. I'm sorry, I throw not the biggest one, but the next to the biggest one's what I throw. And I rig them two ways. I wacky style them and also throw them Texas rig. I use the Shugo hook that Yamamoto makes, and I like that the best because it's got a real deep V right up the top of the eye of the hook, and it holds the sink in place a lot better than the regular Gamakatsu hooks do because it's got a rounded off shoulder. The Shugo hooks don't have that. I use a 5-aught hook in those, and that's what I use. Another question.
Another question. Dee Thomas, professional bass fisherman.
What's your definition of a good tide out here on the Delta? You made that comment about a good tide.
You know, that's a good question. You hear, oh, that's a bad tide, it's a good tide. I guess it's all subjective, too. What do you think, Dee?
I don't have a bad tide in the Delta. But what I do is I try to adapt and change to the tides. Anytime I got high water, upcoming water after the halfway mark, I'll generally go to your buzz baits, lipless crank baits, things that can pull through the weeds and rip them through the weeds. Or I'll go to top water, is what I'll do. When it's going the other way and it's about halfway out, I start playing the edges of the weeds. That's what I do. And right now, this time of the year, you'll find that the bulk of the fish are going to be caught in currents, where they're going to be caught at. Preferably not hard running water, just soft, easy moving water. And if you can play the edge of the weeds on the falling tide, pick up a weed line and just start pitching a jig or a Senko. They're wide open on that Senko right now. But I've been throwing a jig, I've been throwing some tubes, I've been throwing that double wide beaver. I don't scale down my baits. I don't fish little bitty baits. I fish big baits. Bobby Barrett taught me that. He beat my brains out long enough to where I had to go to big bait just to stay within his range. Another question.
Another question for Dee Thomas, anybody? All right, right there.
Do you have an opinion possibly on the state of the Delta as far as having all these tournaments around the Franks Tract area and all the fish being brought back there? Are these fish ever going to find their way to the rest of the Delta, or are they just going to keep staying there?
That's a real, we get some good questions here. What do you think, Dee?
Frank's Tract was as good now, as good 20 years ago as it is now. The only difference is 20 years ago we caught 3-pointers. Now we catch 5, 6, and 7s. And no, I think releasing all the fish right there is wrong. And they put them in these live release boats, and the guy that takes them out takes them just right outside of the track and dumps them in the track. I've watched him do it. And those fish should be hauled over to the mouth of Holland Track, or you go down Holland Track, or take them on over and put them in San Joaquin, or take them on down and dump them right there at the mouth of Fisherman's Cut. Get them out of that area. I don't think where we take the fish to have a tournament hurts the Delta any, because there for a long time we hauled them all out the Big Break. Now we're hauling them here. Then they took them all to, the worst place we took them was downtown Stockton, because they allowed up on the banks down there to put them in a cooler chest. That's what they do. Okay, so no, I don't think that's hurting the fishery any. But I would like to see the release boat get it out there where we can make fishermen. There's some guys that think they're really good that you just go across the wall and catch a big limit and they're stars. It don't work. Another question.
Is flipping still the stalwart thing to do on the Delta, or has it diminished a little bit with this chatterbait and these Senkos? Or just flipping good old crawdad bait still what's happening?
Flip is just as good as it ever was, but you need to pick the time of year you want to do it. It's like any other kind of fishing. Chatterbait's real good in the early spring. Chatterbait, spinnerbait, real good in the early spring when the fish are off the bank. That way there, what you do is you have the tendency to throw to the bank, and you're coming a large range of water from the bank back to the boat. Most of the fish you'll catch in the early spring will be off the bank. It'll probably be halfway between the boat and where you threw it to. Is where it'll probably be. As the year progresses, top water comes on in the spring. When you get up on the beds, you can't beat the flipping technique. And right now we're going, unless you're throwing a swim bait, and they're too heavy for me to throw. But places like Sherman Lake and Big Break in the fall, fishing out there can be just absolutely awesome. Especially when when the temperature drops in San Francisco. When the temperature in San Francisco is the same as it is over here early in the morning, we won't have any wind. That's when we start getting our fall. There's no wind then. Give it a week, 10 days, start going to Sherman, Big Break, Little Break, all that surrounding area out there. Dutch, it's loaded with fish. And that place out there is sort of like all those fish being released right there at Frank's Track. You got brackish water out there. They only go so far into that brackish water. They don't go no further if they've got a choice. So what it does, that's the reason why when the stripers first come into the Delta, they'll all stage. They used to all stage right out there at Sherman Lake. And the reason why, because that's where the salt water met the fresh water. And then they would stay there for a week or 2 weeks to acclimate themselves to the fresh water before they moved them up the river. And what happened is Wayne Cummings and Jerry Abney, they're the fathers of tournaments on the West Coast. They started it all. Everything, the Juan Bass, Western Bass, everything come off of Wayne Cummings and Jerry Abney did out here. They called me up and got me to fish one of their tournaments, and I did. And went to Berryessa, didn't do very well. Left at the end of the first day, went on up to Clear Lake to try to catch some fish. One of the boys I knew brought me home both the trophies, big fish in first place. We'd won it all in one day. Well, that didn't impress me too much because it only took 2 or 3 fish to do good. The next one I went over to Don Pedro and walked in on the houseboat, and Wayne Cummings was signing everybody up. And I was sitting on the counter and watching all this because I didn't know none of these guys. And about that time this year, fisherman came in. He was, God, I forget his name. He was from down Salinas Way. He was the guy that got the prize money lifted. I don't remember his name. Anyway, he got the prize money lifted. He came in there complaining and griping about letting these toonie dippers get into the tournament, He said, "How would you like to meet Dee Thomas?" He says, "I would." So he introduced me to him. He says, "It doesn't change my mind a bit. I don't think you should be able to fish." Well, that tournament, we only waited the first day again. I went home. We finished 14th in that one. The next one coming up was down at San Antonio. Well, by then, Lou Children got together with Frank Halk, who was my team partner. These were team tournaments, by the way. Frank Halk got with Lou Children. It made us up a special rod, 12-footer. And it had hey man, that's a big rod, good big fish. So we go down to San Antonio, we go out there, and at the end of the first day, we're sitting in 3rd or 4th, somewhere down there. Jim Smith and Jerry Warner was leading it. Boys, Jerry flew up to Clear Lake. And I stayed awake all night trying to figure out what I could do to catch a bigger bag of fish, because I thought I was better than that. Frank got up the next morning, he says, "Well, you got up early." I said, "I ain't been to bed." He said, "Well, what are we going to do today?" I said, all I can think of is go back and do the same thing that I did yesterday. We went back out the next day. We caught 8 or 9 fish is all we caught. We didn't only win it, we won it by 10 pounds. That's when I knew that consistency was the name of the game. Earl Sharp, the flipping technique, that's what he wanted to know. That's what happens when you get old. What happened is, I went home about a week, the phone rang. I was out in the garage. Wayne Cummings called me on telephone. He said, "Dee, I got a problem." I said, "What's your problem, Wayne?" He says, "Well," he says, "these guys are really belly aching about you and that 12-foot rod." He said, "They think you got an edge. They don't think you should be able to use it, da-da-da-da-da-da." He said, "How long can I make that pole and still keep you fishing?" Back in those days, I was young, pretty stout. I reached over off the wall and I got a striped bass rod I had, an old Finley. And I thought I could hold it out like that and dip with it with the butt. Well, sure enough, I told him I was make it 7.5 foot long. I'll still fish. Well, that's how the 7.5 foot rule was implemented on the West Coast. Little did they know, by cutting my rod down, they made me a whole lot more effective flipper. Because now I could get in places by a pendulum swing. Myers got a hold of me from Fenwick, and they wanted to design a rod, so he brought up a bunch of rods, and we kept playing with them, and finally he brought one up I liked. The one I liked, he brought the big around the base. And he broke it up, so I told him I liked it. He said, I can't sell that. So he went back and he made some more, and he brought it back up. This next one had a lot of parabolic in it, real strong rod, one-piece rod. And we got that, and we got to go on. I started catching these fish. God, it was fun to fish with. Fishing out with 12-foot aluminum boats when I was fishing with it. And he says, well, what are we going to call this? I said, hell, Dave, I don't know. I says, all I'm doing is just flipping up the bushes. He said, well, let's call it flipping then. I said, well, that's great. I said, my boat's made in Flippin, Arkansas, and I'm flipping for bass. It don't get no better than that. That's what we're going to call it. And that's how it got started.